Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Employee Recognition in the Age of AI. We are going to get started shortly, but I first want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded and available on the RPI website following the session. Go ahead and keep your microphones muted during the presentation. If you do have questions, we encourage those. We would love to hear from you. Go ahead and use the Q&A function on your control panel, and we're going to answer questions at the end of the presentation. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Emily Gatton, SVP of Sales, Solutions, and Professional Services with Engage to Excel, and Andrea Shepherd, Chief Customer Officer with Engage to Excel. Now, Emily, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Employee Recognition in the Age of AI. We're thrilled that you've joined us today for what promises to be an eye-opening conversation about the intersection of artificial intelligence and employee recognition. Before we dive in, let's look at some compelling statistics that really set the stage for today's discussion. According to recent research from Deloitte, 76% of HR leaders believe that AI will significantly transform talent management in the next 5 years. But here's the concerning part. Only 17% of those same HR leaders feel fully prepared for that transformation.
When it comes to employee recognition specifically, the numbers are even more telling, Emily. Our industry research shows that 68% of organizations are actively exploring AI-enhanced recognition platforms, but there's the human element. 82% of employees still prefer recognition that feels personal and authentic.
Exactly. And I think that's where that gap between the technology adoption and human connection is where we're going to spend our time today. Before we jump in, though, let's start with a quick poll to understand where you are in this journey. In your chat, please type A, B, or C. So A, we're just beginning to explore AI in HR. B, we're actively piloting AI tools, but struggling with that human element. Or C, we've implemented AI, but need to improve employee satisfaction with it.
While you all are responding, first, I'll apologize for my voice. It really does sound worse than I feel. But I also want to mention a quick bit about us. So Emily brings 20 years of experience helping organizations transform their people strategies. She's got deep expertise in technology implementation and creative solution design. As for me, my career has been dedicated to guiding HR transformation that not only drives business outcomes, but also creates meaningful experiences that truly resonate with the employees.
Yeah, I mean, I think together we've seen what works, what doesn't. We've heard some crazy stories, and most importantly, thought about how to preserve the human heart of recognition while leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. I see some great responses coming in. Looks like we have a mix of organizations at different stages, which is perfect. Today's content promises to meet you wherever you are in your AI journey.
So today you'll gain clarity on what parts of the recognition program are best kept with the humans and where AI can add value. Second, you'll walk through the practical ideas for using AI as a support tool, but not as a replacement. And third, you'll leave with a clear understanding of how to begin applying these concepts within your own organization. So let's begin.
Okay, let's start by understanding how we got here. I mean, the evolution of AI in HR didn't happen overnight. In 2010, we had basic keyword matching and resume screening as an example, very primitive by today's standards. By 2015, we saw predictive analytics emerge, really helping us forecast employee turnover with about 60% accuracy.
And today we're in a completely different landscape. I mean, modern AI can analyze employee sentiment in real time, even through email patterns or Teams or Slack, whichever one message service your company uses, and survey responses. It can identify and predict high potential candidates with 85% accuracy, which is amazing, suggest personalized career path development, and even identify optimal timing for recognition in those conversations.
And it's easy to see why this is where we're headed. The numbers tell a very compelling story about the impact of AI. Organizations that are using AI-driven HR tools report 40% faster time to hire, a 25% improvement in employee engagement scores, and an 18% reduction in voluntary turnover. But the critical insight that a lot of organizations miss, and you're going to hear us repeat this today, those that are the most successful are the ones that augment human decision making rather than replace it.
And let me paint a picture of what that looks like in practice. If you take recruitment, for example, AI can screen thousands of resumes in minutes, as we all know, but those final hiring decisions still require human judgment because we know the culture fit and the potential as you interact with those individuals. If you think about performance management, AI can track productivity patterns, flag potential issues, but those coaching conversations have to happen live between people as they're talking.
Yeah, and in recognition specifically, we're seeing new applications of AI all the time. Today, AI can analyze recognition patterns across your organization, identify employees who aren't being recognized. If you have a workforce that's split, maybe some online, offline, or remote in person, sometimes those offline or remote employees could be missed, and AI can identify that. It can suggest the optimal frequency of recognition for different personality types. It can even help craft more personalized messages by analyzing what types of recognition have resonated with specific individuals in the past.
And here's sorry. So here's where things get really interesting. And there's many organizations that actually stumble in this area. The same AI that can personalize recognition can also make it feel robotic if it's not implemented thoughtfully. We recently spoke to a Fortune 500 company that implemented an AI-powered recognition platform that automatically generated appreciation messages. And they shared with us that, within 3 months, their employee satisfaction and recognition actually decreased by 23%, which was obviously not what they planned for at all.
Yeah, so why does that happen? Employees could tell the messages weren't authentic. I think we all know managers have different skill sets here. It's easy sometimes to spot messages that the language is a little too perfect. Maybe it was too generic, or there weren't typos or the personal quirks that you come to expect and love about your own manager. Maybe no inside jokes, no references to those shared experiences that you had. And employees can feel that for what it is, computer generated content.
Yeah. And you can kind of contrast that with another organization we worked with. They used AI to analyze recognition patterns and identify employees who weren't being recognized. They then train their managers to use this data and have more intentional recognition conversations. The AI didn't actually write the message, but it did provide the intelligence they needed on who to recognize and when.
Yeah, so if you take the comparison there, so someone who had automated messages and satisfaction went down compared to this case, their result was a 31% increase in recognition frequency and a 28% boost in employee engagement scores. So that key difference was using AI as a support tool rather than the replacement for human connection.
Yeah. And when we look ahead, the trends are clear. By 2027, we predict that 90% of recognition platforms will have some form of AI integration. But organizations that succeed will be maintain the human element while leveraging AI for insights, timing, and personalization support, not replacement.
Yeah. We're also seeing emerging applications like sentiment analysis of recognition messages. That's there to ensure that the messages are having the intended emotional impact. We're seeing predictive modeling to identify when employees are most receptive to recognition, and even voice analysis to deliver them or to help managers deliver messages and the recognition with the right tone and the right energy.
The question isn't whether AI will transform recognition. It already has. We know that. The question is whether your organization will use it to enhance human connection or inadvertently diminish it. So now let's explore the current technology landscape and understand what's available to you today. Recognition platforms generally fall into three categories. You've got basic automation tools, AI enhanced platforms, and fully integrated systems. Basic automation tools handle the simple tasks like anniversary reminders, points tracking, basic reporting. These have been around for years and they do serve a purpose, but they don't leverage the power of modern AI. Those AI enhanced platforms is where more organizations are currently focused. They use machine learning to provide insights, suggest recognition opportunities, and personalize the experience while keeping the human in the driver's seat. These platforms might analyze email sentiment to identify when team members need encouragement, like Emily was saying, or they track recognition patterns to ensure kind of equity across the different groups. Fully integrated systems, they're going to attempt to automate the entire recognition process from identification to delivery. While it sounds technologically impressive, our experience shows that these fail to create meaningful emotional connections for people.
Yeah, and I'll pause here just to point out one thing too. When I think about good recognition program design, you always want it to be in the context of the greater organization's strategies and priorities. So as you're thinking about your recognition program, I would also think about where your organization is on this journey and ensure that your recognition program ties into that. So you may have an organization that's a little less mature in AI, and maybe you want recognition and your HR team and your recognition champions to be those champions that move AI forward. And you might need to take some baby steps along that. Or if you have a more mature organization in AI, then you need to make sure that your recognition program isn't left behind, but instead further supports and adopts the greater organizational strategy as it relates to AI. But let me share a quick case study that highlights the differences here. So we've spoken with a mid-sized financial company that was struggling with manager adoption of their recognition program. They only had a quarter of managers who are actively recognizing their team members. And honestly, recognition satisfaction was pretty low. But they implemented an AI enhanced platform that really did three primary things. First, it analyzed the data to identify potential recognition moments or opportunities. This could have been when someone finished a project or if they went above and beyond on a deadline. Second, it provided managers with conversation starters and message templates. They weren't scripts. They didn't write the messages for them. They just provided the inspiration that they needed. And then third, they tracked the recognition equity to ensure that all team members were being acknowledged. And the results were pretty remarkable. Manager participation nearly tripled within 6 months. But more importantly, the quality of the recognition improved dramatically. Managers reported feeling more confident about when and how to recognize their team members. They saw more consistency across the organization as a whole, and employees said their recognition felt more timely and relevant. But here's what didn't change. The managers still wrote their own messages. They still had the same face-to-face conversations and made the personal connections. The AI simply helped them be more intentional, more effective, and help them identify those recognition options.
That's fantastic. This next story is a good reminder of what to watch out for. Another organization had implemented a fully automated system that generated recognition messages and actually posted them publicly and even selected rewards based upon algorithmic preferences. On paper, the recognition frequency increased by 300%. So if you were just looking at the data, you were thrilled, but the employee surveys told a very different story. People commented on things and it included, it doesn't feel real. I can tell a computer wrote this. I'd rather not get recognition than fake recognition. And because of this, the employee engagement scores actually declined. And they even had several people who left the company and they were high performers within the organization. And they even cited in their exit interviews that there was kind of a lack of authentic appreciation, and that was one of the factors. So the lesson here is clear that efficiency isn't the goal. Connection is the goal. AI should make authentic recognition easier, not replace the artificial alternatives.
So when you're evaluating recognition technology, ask these key questions. Does this help managers be more thoughtful about recognition, or does it think for them? Does it enhance personalization, or does it create generic interactions? And does this provide insights that lead to better human conversations, or does it eliminate those conversations entirely?
Yeah, the most successful platforms we see combine powerful AI insights with intuitive human interface. They might use natural language processing to help managers craft a more impactful message, or predictive analytics to suggest kind of that optimal recognition timing, but they always keep the human in control of the actual recognition moment. Now let's dive into what we call human AI kind of balance framework. This is your roadmap for deciding what to automate and what to keep human in your recognition programs.
We visualize this as an automation curve with 3 distinct zones. So zone 1 is that manual human work. This is activity that are very high in empathy and personal connection, but they're time intensive. So they need to be reserved for those special occasions where it warrants the effort. Zone 2 is assisted automation. That's the sweet spot here. That's where we're trying to get to, where AI provides intelligence and support, but the human maintains the control. And zone 3, it's over automation. It's efficient, but it's often hollow.
All right, let's explore zone 1 a bit more. This is the manual human work that Emily was mentioning. This includes, handwritten thank you notes, face-to-face recognition conversations, kind of that personalized storytelling about specific achievements, and spontaneous moments of appreciation. These activities create deep emotional connection, but they require significant time and investment. I've talked to a couple people, like a handwritten note from a CEO to an employee who went above and beyond can have an impact that lasts for years. You talk to people and they still have those notes, pinned up in their cube or tucked away in a drawer. We know that employees who get those notes from managers held on to them for decades, and you can't automate that level of meaning when somebody has taken that personal time.
Absolutely. And zone 2, I mean, this is the assisted automation where the magic happens. So that's where you see the AI powered nudges, reminding managers maybe it's of important milestones. This could also be where you see the sentiment analysis that helps identify when team members need encouragement. It may be data dashboards or reports that really highlight the recognition gaps across different groups within your organization. It could also even be intelligent suggestions for recognition timing and recognition methods that are going to be the most effective in a given situation.
And zone 3 is that over automation. It includes auto-generated recognition messages that I mentioned a minute ago, but it also has like algorithmic peer nominations without human review. So fully automated reward distribution or performance metrics and any system generated public recognition posts, they may be effective, but they often feel hollow and can actually damage employee engagement.
So let's look again at a decision framework for where any recognition activity should fall on this curve. Ask 3 questions. First, does it require emotional intelligence and empathy? Think of it also about that personal connection with the employee. Do I need to know something personal and connect it back to that person as an individual? If yes, keep it human. Second, would AI insights make it more effective without removing that personal touch? If yes, you can use the assisted automation. So again, it might be just your nudges. It might be data insights or analytics that you can use. Third, is it purely transactional, where there's no need for personal connection? Only then would I consider full automation. So let's apply this framework to common recognition scenarios. Employee anniversaries as an example. The reminder of the milestone can be automated to the manager. That's an example of a nudge. But the message and the celebration should be human. Let's think about project completion. That's another one. You have a team that's dedicated significant time and effort. They've produced great results, maybe cost savings for the organization. AI can identify that achievement and it can suggest timing, maybe even the method of the recognition, but the acknowledgement conversation needs that human touch. Same thing for peer nominations. AI can facilitate the process, it can ensure fairness, but the actual nominations and the message should come from humans.
AI can track performance metrics and identify those top performers, but the real performance-based recognition needs to be noticing, that effort, growth, and kind of the context behind the numbers. AI doesn't know where somebody started off and that this is a milestone on what they've achieved and where they've grown to. And that's something that only people can truly see.
I love that. I think it's absolutely true. So let's think for a minute, and we're going to go into more of this in a second. But for your implementation, here's the tip that I would say. Map your current recognition touch points across this framework here. You'll likely find that you're either doing everything manually, which may not be scalable, or you've automated too much and you've lost that human connection. The goal is to move towards that sweet spot of assisted automation where AI handles the data, the insights, and the logistics, but humans handle the relationship, the emotion, and the personal connection. That combination can give you both the scale and authenticity to give you the ROI that you need. So now let's get practical with a few step-by-step implementation tips or a roadmap that you can start using immediately. We've broken this into 4 phases to help you reduce the risk while building momentum and the buy-in. Talked about this a little bit before as far as make sure this is just a suggestion. Highly recommend you tailoring it to your organization and where you are in your AI journey.
So Emily, phase 1 is going to be an assessment, kind of taking place in like weeks 1 and 2. Your first step is to audit your current recognition touch points using what we call kind of a human touch scorecard. Every recognition interaction in your organization, you want to ask 3 questions. Is it personal? Is it timely? And is it authentic? And score those on like a scale of 1 to 5. During this assessment phase, you'll also conduct what we call a recognition equity analysis. Use your current data to identify patterns. Are certain departments getting more recognition? Are remote employees being recognized as frequently as in-office staff? Are there other demographic disparities in recognition? Look at the frequency or type of those. You'll also want to survey both managers and employees about their current recognition experiences. Ask the managers about their biggest challenges. Is it remembering to recognize people? Is it knowing what to say? Or do they just feel that they don't have time? I know that we tell people sometimes, I've got folks that they do it on Fridays where they actually block time on their calendar because they say, I do think about all these good things, but I'm just so busy in the week that I make the effort to do it on Fridays. And then you want to ask the employees about the recognition meaning and what means most to them when they feel most valued with that recognition.
I think that assessment is really key, and I love the suggestions to pull other people in. We were working with a client recently and talking to HR first. They had outlined exactly how they wanted everything to go until they presented it to the managers. And they found that in certain subsets of the organization, recognition that the HR team honestly just felt was outdated and that employees didn't value was actually the preferred method of recognition in that offline population. So they had to circle back and say, we're going to make some changes. So I think that idea of getting the analysis and the feedback from other areas of the organization is really critical. Once you finish that assessment part, then you can move to phase 2. Look for those quick wins. We have it here as weeks 3 to 6. That may be months 3 to 6 for you. Again, this is more just a guideline for you to take as a general path to follow. But in your quick wins, you're looking for the low risk, high impact changes that can help build confidence in AI assisted recognition. It may be starting with automated service anniversary milestone reminders. Maybe you think about birthdays, project deadlines that are coming. Those are simple, but they provide immediate value. After that, think about implementing basic recognition dashboards or reviewing reports that show managers who on their team haven't been recognized recently. It's not telling them what to do or what to say. It's just providing that insight and awareness. We consistently see 40 to 60% increases in recognition frequency simply from having managers look at that and that simple intervention alone. Here you could also add sentiment analysis for your existing communication tools that's available and possible for you. There are many platforms that offer plugins that can analyze your email tone or your meeting sentiment to identify when team members might need encouragement. Again, it's providing insight, not automating the recognition itself.
And phase 3 is the advanced features, that we suggest rolling out in months 2 to 4, or as Emily said, it could be much later. This is where you implement more sophisticated AI capabilities like personalization engines that learn the types of recognition and what resonates with different individuals. You can pull in predictive analytics that suggest optimal timing as well, and advanced equity monitoring that ensures fair recognition across all groups. During this phase, you might also implement kind of an AI-powered recognition coach for managers. This could include real-time suggestions for improving recognition messages, a training module that adapts based upon the manager's performance, and feedback loops that help managers understand the impact of their recognition efforts.
And lastly, phase 4, culture integration. This is happening in months 4 to 6. And this is where you start to embed AI-assisted recognition into your broader culture and performance management systems. Here, recognition data should inform promotion decisions, team health assessments, leadership development programs. You're really using your recognition data to do skills assessment and learn about your organization in a different way. And then we could talk about change management, because we know that even the best technology fails if you don't have proper adoption. Start by identifying those recognition champions, the managers who are already good at recognizing their teams. They make it a priority. Get them involved early and let them become advocates for this new approach. And honestly, we all know we have to address the fear factor head on. Many managers worry that AI will make recognition feel less authentic or that they'll be judged by an algorithm. Be clear to them and to the broader organization that AI is just a support tool. It's not a replacement for their own judgment and relationship building skills. You can provide the comprehensive training that focuses on the why before you focus on the how. Help managers understand that AI can make them more effective at something they already want to do, which is appreciate their team members meaningfully. And lastly here, measure what matters. Don't just track the system usage or the recognition frequency, like we talked about before, that on paper may look like you're producing great results. Make sure you couple that with measuring employee satisfaction with the recognition. Talk to your managers about their confidence in the recognition skills that they've learned, and then look at the business impact of improving the recognition and what it has done for you in engagement and retention.
Yep, that's huge. And especially when you say, the manager's confidence and recognition. Emily made me think about, there's a company we were meeting with, and one of the guy who ran their whole manufacturing facility said he was horrified when he went out on the floor and he literally was watching a supervisor text the feedback, coaching feedback, to an employee who was standing 5 feet behind him. And as he talked to people, he found out, and I've got kids in my 20s these days, and they are glued to their phones, right? So the ability to look somebody in the eye and deliver feedback, positive or negative, sometimes can just not feel comfortable to them. And so we ended up doing an employee-centric manager training to teach people how to even have those conversations. So before they can even pull in the additional tools, they need to have a baseline for how to even interact and deliver information, both positive and negative. So some of those common implementation pitfalls to avoid: don't try to automate everything all at once. We all hear the analogy like go slow to go fast. And, if we see all these shiny new tools and they sound great, but we do need to make sure that you're bringing it in and kind of piloting different things as you go, and make sure you're bringing it into your organization at a rate that they can adopt. So don't implement AI recognition without training the managers on effective recognition practices. And don't measure success purely by the efficiency metrics. And don't forget to gather feedback and iterate as you go through this whole process. So resource allocation is also critical. Make sure your budget for change management and training, not just the technology. Plan for ongoing support and optimization, and ensure you have executive sponsorship that emphasizes the human element of this initiative. And finally, I would say create feedback loops that help you continuously improve. Regular pulse surveys is a good way to do this at looking at recognition experiences, or things that you just do focus groups with managers and employees. And the data analysis that looks beyond the frequency and is more focused on impact and satisfaction. So I know that we've covered a lot of ground today, and I know many of you have specific questions about implementing these concepts in your organization. We're going to open it up for questions. If you want to type your questions in the chat, we can address those, as many of those as we can today.
Awesome. Thank you. We had a couple questions come in the chat. One was sharing where the data is cited from. I think that was back on the AI recognition gap.
Is that the Deloitte part? I'll have to look back and see which.
Oh, yep, AI impact. Sorry. So slide 9, 40% faster time to hire, 25% improvement in engagement hire, 18% reduction in turnover, and ROI timeline 60 to 90 days initial impact, 6 to 12 months full ROI.
I have that, but not here. Like
Okay,
I
we can
beside
send it
it,
out.
but
Yeah,
I see the name Dawn Brogan, and we can follow up. Dawn will send it to you afterwards with those where that site
perfect.
from, so you know who you're quoting when you share some of that data.
Great. Another question, can you expand on sentiment analysis?
Sure. I mean, I think when I think of sentiment analysis, sentiment's really the mood and the feel. So it can come in a few different ways. If I think about it in recognition messages, if a manager writes something that's supposed to be positive and upbeat, does that recognition message feel that? Does it translate? And I think of this oftentimes in organizations that have a lot of manufacturing as an example. And let's look at the typical demographic of that. These managers are typically very hands-on. They're oftentimes very involved in the processes for things, but they might not be the most people focused. They've got timelines and deadlines to hit, and they're focused on safety and all the distribution metrics that they need to hit. And so sometimes it's hard for them to sit down and really write something that needs to convey emotion and positivity in it. And so it just helps them evaluate, is what you're trying to say here reflective in the words and the message that you've written? I don't know, Andrea, if you would add anything else to
Yeah,
that.
I even think about Emily, it was probably, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago, the time is flying, but we were doing an internal branding project within our organization. And one of the things we did is we sent out surveys, and we ended up getting about 600 respondents back within our company. And we were asking them, what do you love about working here? What do you not like about working here? What would you like to improve? And even taking, we use Copilot, and since that's where we can kind of keep our data secure, and just taking all of those results and asking Copilot to, kind of take all of that and say, what is the sentiment? Overall, overarching, what is the theme that people are saying, and how do they feel based upon these 600 responses? And that's, I mean, you think about it, used to be an IO psychologist that took an incredible amount of time to have to comb through and give you that level of information. And now we can do it within seconds utilizing AI. So I think that's also the other side of the coin when we think about sentiment analysis and the ability to do that kind of swiftly and on your own.
Yeah, and I do think when you think about sentiment, I'll put this out there too. I know that there is an element of privacy concern when you start to say that we're going to analyze employee communications or different things for sentiment. And I always want to say that privacy and transparency are non-negotiable. You always want to get explicit employee consent for any communication analysis that you're doing. Make sure that you're communicating that to them and they understand how the data would be used. And then also just use aggregated and anonymous data whenever possible, especially like in the example that Andrea gave. You don't need to know individual employees. You're looking at how do we as an organization feel towards a certain topic, or what is the sentiment that this data is telling me? So really look at it as that aggregated point. And then again, I think I mentioned this before, but just be transparent to employees. Tell them about the data that you're collecting and how it's being used. If possible, allowing them to opt out is ideal as well.
All right. Feel free to put other questions in the chat or the Q&A function. We're monitoring those. Awesome. Okay. So I think you spoke about it a little bit, but what are best practices for using AI-driven nudges or recommendations without making recognition feel forced or robotic?
Andrea, you want to take this one? You me too. I'll let you. Yeah, I could take this. So I think, you're right. We did talk about it some. A lot of times nudges can be the things that provide the insights on when to provide the recognition. So it's not the recognition itself. It's just the notification, hey, you may want to recognize this. So I think of that in terms of service anniversaries are a very easy one. That would be that low cost or a low hanging fruit, I would say, to implement. You could do that for birthdays. If you have big projects or initiatives in your organization, generally you're going to have a few things that your department's working on throughout the year in that goal setting process. Looking at that and just reminding managers. So maybe it's in the goal setting process, you nudge managers and you say, hey, don't forget, if people have achieved their goals above and beyond, this is a great time to look at opportunities to recognize them, or just creating the different times throughout the year where you really want to nudge or prompt managers to make recognition a priority. And then it goes back to everything that we've said. That nudge isn't to do the recognition for them. We still want managers to be the owners of this, or we want peers to be the owners. And I'll say that too, because I think that's another important point. We know from our research that recognition from your frontline manager is going to be the most effective and meaningful for employees, but it's not to say that peer recognition isn't super important as well. I think our peers oftentimes see things that managers may not. They have different visibility into things. And so even creating that nudge or the reminder for an employee to recognize could also be super helpful in getting the momentum going within your organization.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. We don't have any other questions at this time. If you do think of any after the fact, feel free to email us at info@recognition.org and we can connect you with the speakers from today. All right. Well, thank you, Emily and Andrea. We appreciate the insights that you provided today. This is a fantastic presentation. I know it's a hot topic, so appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who attended. Please feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, info@recognition.org. We can answer any questions or connect you with our speakers from today. We always love to get feedback on our webinars. So I just put a survey link in the chat. If you could please complete the survey, it's very short. It just really helps us guide future webinar offerings, and it's really important feedback that we like. Few upcoming events that we have. RPI's annual meeting is coming up on December 9th, so you can register for that on our website. We also just announced CRP dates for 2026, our Certified Recognition Professional workshop, and we have 8 workshops that are available next year for you to sign up for. Any other questions that you have, feel free to email us. We would love to have you get more involved with RPI. With that, I will say thank you again. Emily and Andrea, and thanks for attending today and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you.